For over 500 years, the cod-rich waters off Newfoundland sustained generations. Families, economies, and cultures thrived until one of the world's greatest fisheries vanished almost overnight. Now, how did one of the world's richest fisheries collapse? This is the story of the Northern Cod collapse, and what it teaches us about the dangers of overexploiting nature.
The Northern Cod fishery was centered in the Grand Banks off Newfoundland, once one of the richest marine ecosystems on Earth. For centuries, the Atlantic cod supported indigenous groups and settler communities. They helped with providing food, jobs later on, and identity. Cod wasn't just a fish, it was the backbone of local culture, economies, and the marine food web. But by 1992, things changed. After centuries of fishing and decades of overexploitation, cod populations crashed, and the government was forced to shut down the fishery. What once was a symbol of abundance became a warning about unsustainable resource use. The collapse of the Northern Cod fishery isn't a mystery. We know what happened. It was a man-made disaster that could have been prevented, and it was basically made because of greed, ignorance, and being short-sighted on policy. For example, overfishing played one of the biggest roles in this case. For decades, industrial-scale fishing fleets, many that were actually from outside of Canada, harvested cod faster than the population could replenish itself. These weren't even small operations. They were massive trawlers capable of catching thousands and thousands of fish in a single outing. Secondly, there was a failure of policy and governance. Marine biologists have been sounding alarm and warning people as early as the 1970s. They were warning that cod stocks were declining rapidly, but instead of listening to the science, officials set quotas based on political and economic pressure as they were desperate to protect jobs and coastal economies, even if it meant ignoring the truth. Thirdly, we saw there was a trophic cascade. So that's when the removal of a top predator like the cod causes a ripple effect throughout the food web. So without the cod to keep populations of smaller fish in check and invertebrates like shrimp and crab, their populations exploded, and that altered the ecosystem. And finally, technology and how fast it was accelerated the collapse. Modern sonar made it easy to find schools of cod, and the trawling nets, like equipment that they used to fish, scooped up everything in their path and destroyed habitat and cast more than just cod in the process. So together, these processes created a perfect storm and led to the collapse that devastated many people later on.
As for the consequences that followed the incident, there were many issues. Both ecological and human costs were clearly present at this time. Thousands of families were left jobless. Many coastal towns became empty as many had begun to move out due to the lack of livelihoods. At this point, many cod stocks had barely recovered. In fact, some remain at less than 5% of what they originally accumulated. And eventually, shrimp and smaller fish surged, which ensured that, although there were some presence of life, marine ecosystems were disrupted, and they were disrupted for a very long period of time. These consequences weren't only staggering for humans, but they were essentially staggering for the ecological health of the environment.
Today, small but significant steps are being taken in order to protect our oceans and to help prevent something like this from happening. Strict fishing quotas are in place to prevent overexploitation and allow fish populations to recover. These regulations are designed to promote long-term sustainability over short-term profit. Additionally, marine protected areas, or MPAs, have been established across the globe. These zones act as safe havens for marine life, helping preserve things like biodiversity and allowing these ecosystems to thrive without human interference. In addition to that, indigenous and local communities who have or more directly connected to these waters, are increasingly involved in the co-management of these resources. Their traditional knowledge and stewardship are vital to sustainable practice and help us a lot. Meanwhile, consumers are also being empowered to make responsible choices. Certifications like the Marine Stewardship Council MSC label help people identify and purchase sustainably sourced seafood, reducing the demand for destructive fishing practices.
The fall of the Northern Cod fishery is a very important warning. No resource is infinite. In fact, we must act before we collapse our most powerful industries. Here's what we can do. We can choose sustainable seafood. This means we don't have to support businesses that intensively farm marine life. We're also able to stay informed and push for policy that protects marine life. This ensures that the living things around us have a stable life. We can also understand that there are limits for our planets. We cannot overexploit our resources, as we are a carrying capacity that must be sustained. Let's make sure that as many times as the ocean gives us resources, we must give them our support.